The spotlight hit Emily first. It always did. But that night, as her crown glittered under the Meadowlands lights, my phone buzzed and the message staring back at me didn't just sting, it rewrote everything I thought I knew about my own family. Before we continue, kindly comment the city where you are watching from and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story like this. Now let's continue. The air in Ridgewood always carried the same quiet, perfume-trimmed lawns, fall leaves, and the faint hum of people pretending everything was perfect. I used to think our family blended right into that story, the kind where neighbors waved from driveways and parents clapped proudly at every school event. But when I look back now, the illusion was fragile the entire time, cracking at the edges long before it finally broke. My parents, Karen and Douglas, lived for impressions. They loved clean photos, staged smiles, and anything that made the Hale name look polished, and nothing polished better than my younger sister Emily. She moved through rooms like she owned the light. Her curls bounced, her shoes sparkled, people turned. My parents lived for that. Meanwhile, I learned early that silence kept the peace. I liked robotics, circuits, puzzles, the things you needed patience for. My parents said they were proud, but the word floated in the air like a compliment they felt obligated to give. They never came to competitions, never asked what I was building, never stayed long enough to watch me finish. Still, I tried. Some kids screamed to be noticed. I just worked harder. Maybe if I brought home enough medals, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at her. And every time they didn't, I'd tell myself the same quiet lie. Maybe next time. One Saturday afternoon, the house buzzed with preparation for Emily's next pageant. Karen ironed her sequined dress on the dining table. Dad wrapped soft curls around a special heated wand Emily insisted only he could use. They were laughing about photographers and sponsors. I walked in holding a letter from my robotics coach, an invitation to represent our state in a national showcase. "Mom," I said, "they want me in Washington next month." She didn't look up. "Put it on the counter, honey. I'm handling Emily's travel right now." Dad added, "We'll look later, okay?" We never did. The letter disappeared under a pile of costume receipts, as if it had never existed. That was my normal, not loud rejection, just invisibility. And maybe that's why the message from my school counselor startled me so much that evening. I was in my room, soldering a motor for a small robot, when my laptop pinged. The subject line read, "Urgent request for clarification regarding your scholarship responses." I frowned. I hadn't responded to any scholarship coordinators yet. I hadn't even scheduled interviews. Why would they need clarification? I opened the email, expecting a mistake or a wrongly routed message. But the moment I saw the first line, "We received concerning communication from your account this week," a small tremor ran through my fingers. Something was off, deeply off. And while I didn't know it yet, that email was the first loose thread in a tapestry my parents had been weaving behind my back for a long, long time. I stared at the screen, heartbeat thudding, wondering one simple question that clenched tight in my chest. What had someone said pretending to be me? The counselor's message echoed in my head long after I closed the laptop. I sat there in the dim glow of my desk lamp, hands pressed against my mouth, trying to breathe through the sharp panic rising in my chest. Someone had pretended to be me. Someone had replied to scholarship coordinators, people who held my future in their hands, and told them I wasn't ready, wasn't stable, wasn't capable. But who would do that? A terrible thought flickered, one I didn't want to name. My parents were careless with my feelings, yes, but would they go that far? I needed proof, something solid, something undeniable. Our family shared one main laptop in the living room. It was mostly for bills and pageant registrations. My parents never imagined I'd check anything on it. They barely imagined I existed outside of dinners and car rides. I walked down the stairs quietly, each step creaking in that old New Jersey home. The glow from the street lamps painted long lines across the floor. I sat in front of the laptop, heartbeat rattling in my ears, and opened the email account they always kept logged in, the family Gmail used for everything official. My hands shook as I clicked the sent folder. The top message nearly stopped my breath, too. Ridgewood Scholarships, Admin Org, subject regarding interview for Alyssa Hale. I clicked it. Thank you for reaching out. Alyssa does not feel prepared for interviews at the moment. She has been overwhelmed, emotional, and struggling with leadership expectations. Please remove her from consideration. Signed, Alyssa. But the writing wasn't mine. The phrasing wasn't mine. The grammar wasn't mine. The signature wasn't mine. I clicked another email, then another, then another. My mother had written to my robotics coach, Alyssa feels the team would run better with someone else as captain. She's not mentally ready for the pressure. My father had replied to a volunteer program in Princeton. She's stepping back from extracurriculars until she stabilizes. The word felt like ice. Message after message painted me as fragile, unstable, unreliable. And they had done it in my name. They didn't just neglect me, they were rewriting me. Why? To keep the focus on Emily. To make sure no achievement of mine ever overshadowed a crown or sash, I leaned back, fists trembling against my knees. My parents were sabotaging me, and they had been doing it for months. But something gnawed at me, something worse. One email wasn't from Mom or Dad. It was from an account labeled Emily Hale Photos Cloud. The subject line read, "Forward to Mom and Dad, urgent." I opened it. Inside was a screenshot of my private project notes. Another message below it. Here's what she's working on. She'll probably pretend she's too busy again. There were more images, my grades, my drafts, rejection letters I had never shown anyone, even messages between me and Jonah about competition plans. Everything forwarded, everything shared. Emily had been giving them access to my world. She'd given them the tools to control how others saw me, and she had done it quietly, behind my back, while smiling at me every day at breakfast. A hard lump rose in my throat. My parents had gutted my opportunities, but Emily, she had opened the door. My eyes burned, not from tears, those had already evaporated into a cold clarity, but from realization. They didn't want me to fail. They needed me to. I stared at the glowing laptop screen until my reflection blurred into the background. A question curled in my mind like smoke, bitter and hot. How long had my own family been working to erase me? I closed the laptop slowly, as if shutting it too fast might shatter whatever was left of the world I thought I lived in. My hands still trembled, though my face felt strangely still. It was the kind of stillness that comes right before something breaks or right before something sharpens. I needed answers, but confronting my parents outright would give them room to deny, twist, spin. They were good at that. They could turn cold neglect into misunderstanding and sabotage, into parental concern. I'd heard them do it to other people for years. I wasn't about to give them the chance to do it to me. But Emily was different. She didn't lie well, and she wasn't cautious with her digital life. Every device she owned synced automatically to her cloud. Photos, notes, voice memos, everything. She bragged about it. I never lose anything. It's all backed up. She never imagined someone would use that against her. I went back upstairs, shut my bedroom door softly, and opened my own laptop. It took only a few tries to guess her cloud password. She always used her birthday followed by the word crown. The moment I logged in, a gallery of her perfect little life spread across my screen. Pageant selfies, dress fittings, screenshots of her Instagram drafts. But I wasn't looking for glitter. I was looking for damage. I clicked her documents folder. There it was a subfolder titled Alyssa Stuff. My chest tightened. I opened it. Inside were dozens of files, my school essays, project outlines, my robotics club spreadsheets, even screenshots of my text messages with teachers. She had renamed them with little labels Mom use. Ask Dad. Proof she's slipping. Proof I'm slipping. I clicked one file, a screenshot of a private conversation I had with my counselor months ago, where I admitted feeling overwhelmed by balancing robotics with school. It wasn't dramatic, just honest stress, but Emily had highlighted one sentence. Some days are harder than others. Next to it, she'd typed, "Mom, show her this so the scholarship people don't think she's stable." Stable. Again, that word. Always that word. My breath caught. Her notes went on. She's acting too confident lately. She'll embarrass the family if she keeps trying that robotics thing. She doesn't photograph well. Let me be the focus. Line after line. Reasoning after reasoning. Each one colder than the last. I scrolled further until I found a voice memo. It was only 8 seconds long. I clicked it. Emily's voice spilled into my headphones, sweet and casual. She won't fight back. She never does. Just tell people she needs a break. They'll believe you. I froze. This wasn't just rivalry. This was strategy. Emily had built a whole system where she fed them information. They used it to contain me, and together they kept the family spotlight exactly where they wanted it on her. My stomach twisted, not because of what they did, but because of what it meant. They knew my strengths. They feared them. And instead of nurturing me, they clipped my wings and called it protection. I leaned back, air shaking in my chest, and whispered to no one, "Why is winning everything to them?" The question sat in the dark. Heavy. Honest. Poisonous. I heard footsteps in the hallway, Emily heading to her room. I minimized everything and listened. Her door clicked shut. I pictured her brushing those perfect curls, humming, unaware that her world had already begun to tip. Part of me wanted to storm into her room and demand to know why she did it. But I already knew the answer. She had said it once before during a fight over something stupid, a dress or a curfew, I can't remember, but the words came back clear. Crowns look better on Christmas cards than robots. I had laughed it off back then. Tonight, the line cut deep. If this was the game they played, image over truth, spotlight over family, then they shouldn't have been shocked the day I decided to play it better than them. I closed Emily's files one by one, feeling something inside me settle. Not anger, not sadness, something quieter, sharper, purposeful. If they wanted a world built on perfect images, then they shouldn't have been surprised when the curtain finally rose, and as I shut my laptop, a single thought curled through me, steady and certain. They taught me their rules. They won't like how I use them. I barely slept that night. Not because of fear, that part of me had already burned away, but because something new had taken its place. A steady, focused calm. The kind you feel before tightening the final screw on a machine you know will work perfectly. Morning crept into Ridgewood with its usual quiet charm. Joggers passing by, sprinklers clicking on, neighbors waving from porches. A normal day pretending it wasn't sitting on top of a fault line. Downstairs, Mom was humming while smoothing fabric on one of Emily's dresses. Dad was discussing lighting setups for her next photo shoot. Their voices drifted through the house like nothing in the world could ever be wrong. I walked past them without speaking. They didn't look up. For years, that would have hurt. Today, it simply confirmed what I already knew. They only noticed me when it benefited their version of perfection. If they believed silence meant weakness, they were about to learn it could also mean strategy. I went to my room, shut the door, and opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it Truth. The irony made my fingers twitch with something close to dark amusement. The plan wasn't born in one moment. It unfolded piece by piece, quiet and methodical, a blueprint of exposure. First, I downloaded every email from the family laptop, every lie, every impersonation, every message written in my name. I archived them chronologically, labeling each one with date, sender, and intent. A map of their sabotage. Next, I pulled the files from Emily's cloud. Screenshots, edits, notes, the voice memo. I kept her original timestamps intact. Evidence speaks loudest when it's untouched. But I knew digital files alone weren't enough. People believe voices, faces, reactions. So I added audio, recordings from years of conversations overheard in hallways or at dinner tables, moments where they dismissed my accomplishments or laughed at the idea of me having any real success. Each clip small on its own, but together, a pattern. A story they could never spin their way out of. Halfway through collecting everything, a strange thing happened. My hands stopped shaking. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't sad. I felt like I was assembling a machine designed to do one very specific thing, tell the truth louder than they ever wanted it heard. By late afternoon, I had nearly 100 pieces of evidence, and I still wasn't finished. I grabbed my backpack and walked to school. The halls were quiet. After class clubs were wrapping up, I knocked on my robotics coach's door. He looked up from his desk, eyes softening when he saw me. "Alyssa, hey, you okay? You didn't look great yesterday." "I need a statement," I said gently, "about what you told my parents this year, about my leadership, my performance, everything." He studied my face. "Is something wrong at home?" "Yes, everything was wrong." But I kept my voice steady. "I just need the truth, please." He nodded, thoughtful and worried, but he typed it, a detailed, signed letter praising my work ethic, commitment, and stability. He even added a line that hit harder than he realized. If Alyssa ever felt unsupported, it was never due to her abilities, only her circumstances. Circumstances, a polite word for sabotage. Next, I visited my counselor. She invited me to sit, offering water and a soft smile. "Your email last night concerned me. Those messages didn't sound like you. They weren't." My voice didn't break. I think that scared her more. She wrote another official statement, confirming the scholarship withdrawals weren't from me. As she handed it to me, she asked, "Do you feel safe at home?" I swallowed. "I feel aware." Walking out of her office, the air felt colder, lighter, like I had stepped out of a shadow I hadn't realized covered me for years. Back home, I searched for one more thing information about the Ridgewood Family Excellence Banquet, the event where my parents were scheduled to receive their precious Parent Leadership Award, a celebration of integrity, community service, family support. They had already submitted photos of Emily volunteering and smiling. They had crafted paragraphs about their dedication to nurturing both daughters. The lies were almost poetic in their hypocrisy. The banquet allowed anonymous submissions of supporting or contradicting evidence, a truth check they called it, a safeguard to ensure the award honored real character. They had no idea how deeply I planned to use that rule. I compiled everything, emails, recordings, documents, memos, and spent hours editing it into one clean, undeniable presentation. No anger, no commentary, just facts, straight, cold, unavoidable facts. At midnight, I hit submit. The upload bar crawled across my screen. When it reached 100%, I sat back in the darkness and let the silence settle around me. It wasn't heavy anymore. An hour later, a new email pinged. "Your submission has been accepted for review." My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat. All I felt was a steady, grounded certainty. If my family wanted to build their lives on a stage, then they shouldn't have been surprised when the curtain finally rose. Tomorrow, the truth would finally have an audience, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the spotlight at all. The day of the banquet arrived, wrapped in the kind of crisp autumn air Ridgewood was known for, golden leaves drifting along the sidewalks, shop windows glowing warm, the quiet hum of families heading to weekend events. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt like standing in the calm center of a storm that only I knew was coming. My parents moved around the house as if they were preparing for royalty. Mom steamed her dress 3 times, smoothing every inch like her life depended on it. Dad polished his shoes until they reflected the kitchen lights. Emily rehearsed her smile in the hallway mirror, tilting her chin at different angles. "This lighting washes me out," she muttered. Dad chuckled. "You'll look perfect under the banquet lights." They didn't ask if I was going. They assumed I'd be there, quiet and supportive, like I always was. So I got dressed, calm and steady, and walked out with them. No arguments, no tension. Not a single sign of the truth sitting in my backpack on a USB drive, even though I had already submitted it days before. If they bothered to look at me, they might have noticed the difference, but they didn't. Their focus was locked on the night ahead, the applause, the praise, the whispers of admiration from Ridgewood's finest. The banquet hall was draped in deep blue and gold, chandeliers reflecting off long polished tables. Families gathered in clusters, greeting each other with warm hugs and practiced compliments. Local officials stood near the stage, shaking hands. There were photo booths, charity displays, and a large screen showing a slideshow of past winners. Mom straightened her posture and whispered, "Remember to stay behind us in photos. Just smile softly." I nodded once, biting back a small laugh. If only she knew. As we entered the main hall, people greeted my parents with admiration. "Karen Douglas, so well-deserved. You two are the definition of leadership." And Emily, someone cooed, "You look like a real princess." Emily beamed. "Thank you. I hope to have new sponsorship news soon." My mother's eyes glowed. "Just wait until after tonight." I slipped into a chair near the back, watching, waiting. The hall buzzed with conversations, the kind full of little boasts hidden inside polite chatter. I could almost feel the tension humming beneath the surface, not from the crowd, from me. My heartbeat slowed instead of rising, calm, cold, ready. The host tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Tonight, we honor families who demonstrate exceptional integrity, support, and leadership." The word integrity pierced the room like a spotlight of its own. My parents leaned forward, hands clasped. Emily sparkled under the stage lights, smiling at every camera she spotted. The host continued, "Before we present the Parent Leadership Award, we have received a special submission. Due to its nature, the review committee has unanimously agreed it must be shared with the entire room." My mother's smile twitched. My father's shoulders stiffened. Emily glanced around, confused. A soft murmur spread through the hall. I felt the air shift, a small, nearly imperceptible ripple, like the room itself sensed a story about to unfold. My fingers tightened slightly around the edge of my seat. The host adjusted his glasses. "This submission contains documentation regarding one of tonight's nominated families. It was provided anonymously." That word anonymously drifted across the hall like a match in a dry field. I could see my parents trying to read each other's expressions, silently exchanging panic in tiny flashes. The lights dimmed, the screen brightened. The banquet hall quieted, until the silence felt almost artificial, like the breath before a verdict. And then the first email appeared. Bold, clear, unmistakable. Mom whispering my instability. Dad rejecting opportunities on my behalf. The timestamps, the signatures, the lies. Gasps rippled through the hall. Emily's face washed pale under the screen's harsh light. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father froze completely, like the chair had turned him to stone. The crowd leaned in, stunned, and the host said the words that told me the night had officially begun. "Let the record show. This evidence speaks for itself." My heart beat once, steady and certain. The storm had finally reached the room. The screen shifted again, and another email appeared, this one from Emily's cloud account. Her own words highlighted, echoing through the hall like a confession she never meant the world to hear. Here's what she's working on. She'll pretend she's too busy again, show this so the scholarship people don't think she's stable. She won't fight back. She never does. The crowd reacted instantly, a wave of whispered shock rolling across the tables. I saw heads turning. People who once praised my parents now stared at them like strangers they weren't sure they trusted anymore. Then came the recordings. Short clips at first, my mother saying I wasn't leadership material, my father laughing at the idea of me winning anything meaningful, the two of them discussing how to manage expectations so Emily wouldn't feel overshadowed. Every sentence built a case. Every timestamp formed a timeline. Every voice clip hammered the truth they had buried for years. My mother's lips trembled. My father grabbed the edge of the table like he needed something to anchor him. Emily's mascaraed eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. The screen played the 8-second voice memo. Emily's voice, clear and crisp. She won't fight back. She never does. Just tell people she needs a break. They'll believe you. A stunned silence swallowed the room. Then someone whispered, "Oh my God," and the whole banquet hall seemed to exhale at once. The host cleared his throat, carefully neutral. "We present evidence only to uphold the integrity of this award. The committee regrets that these actions occurred under the pretense of leadership." Behind him, the slideshow continued rolling, emails, screenshots, grades, forwarded without permission, scholarship declines, messages written in my name. All of it illuminated in unforgiving detail. Mom covered her face with her hands. Dad mouthed something like, "Stop, please." But the screen didn't stop. It continued until every lie had surfaced, every manipulation exposed, every mask ripped away. When the last image disappeared, the screen faded into soft gold again, but no one clapped. The applause they had expected, the applause they lived for, was gone, replaced with something colder, heavier judgment. Emily stood suddenly. Her chair scraped sharply across the floor. Tears streaked her perfectly applied makeup. She stumbled toward the exit, nearly bumping into a server, and pushed the doors open with a choked sob. Mom reached for Dad's hand. "Douglas, do something." But what could he do? His entire reputation, their reputation, was unraveling faster than he could breathe. The host spoke into the microphone, his voice gentle but decisive. "In light of this evidence, the Parent Leadership Award will not be presented to the Hale family." A quiet gasp hissed across the room, and effective immediately, the Hale nomination is removed from consideration. My father shut his eyes, jaw tight, like the words physically hit him. My mother let out a broken sound I had never heard before, a mix between disbelief and humiliation. The host hesitated, then added, "We sincerely hope the family seeks the support and guidance needed to address these issues." It wasn't just rejection. It was a public record of failure. In Ridgewood, that mattered almost as much as truth. Then came the final question, the one that turned the night from revelation into reckoning. "Before we proceed," the host said, "the committee asks that the individual who submitted this documentation come forward. Transparency is essential." The entire room shifted. People turned, chairs creaked, conversations hushed. It was as if a slow, invisible spotlight moved across the tables, searching. And then it reached me. Eyes widened, mouths parted. Someone whispered, "Is it her?" My mother looked at me, really looked, for the first time in a long time. Her face was pale, trembling, shocked, betrayed. But beneath it all, somewhere deep, I saw something else. Fear. My father stiffened, jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, not in anger, in realization. They finally understood who they had underestimated. I rose from my seat with calm legs and a steady breath. The truth didn't weigh on me. It lifted me. Without a word, without a single apology for exposing what they'd done, I stepped out from behind the table and walked toward the aisle. One step. Another. The hall held its breath. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to justify. The evidence had done that for me. And as I crossed the room, quiet and deliberate, a single thought echoed in my mind. They taught me their rules. I just played them better. The aisle felt longer than any hallway I had ever walked. Each footstep landed softly against the carpet. But the sound inside my chest was louder, a deep, steady pulse that matched the rhythm of truth finally being seen. No applause, no murmurs, just a room full of people realizing the perfect Hale family had never actually been perfect at all. I didn't walk all the way to the stage. I didn't need to. Halfway down the aisle, I stopped, turned slightly so the room could see my face, and let the silence settle. The host didn't ask me to speak. He simply nodded, a small, knowing gesture, as if acknowledging something the whole room now understood. My parents stared at me like they were trying to recognize a stranger. In a way, maybe they were. They had built a version of me in their heads, quiet, compliant, easily overshadowed. Someone who would never disrupt their spotlight. Someone who would never stand tall in a room like this. They didn't realize that invisibility sharpens a person. It teaches you to see everything. And today, they were finally seeing me back. I held their gaze for a moment longer, then turned and walked out of the banquet hall. Not rushed, not shaken, just done. The night air greeted me with a cold clarity that wrapped around my shoulders like freedom. The sky above Ridgewood was sharp with stars, quiet witnesses to a story that had finally shifted. I didn't look back. By morning, everything had changed. The Hale house, once buzzing with pageant schedules and bragging rights, felt hollow. The phone rang non-stop, neighbors calling, sponsors retracting, committee members asking for statements. Mom cried in the living room, begging someone on the phone to understand the misunderstanding. Dad paced the hallway, voice cracking as he said words like taken out of context and family matter. But truth doesn't care about context when it's been buried for years. Emily stayed in her room. Her sponsors had dropped her before sunrise, issuing statements about value alignment and brand integrity. Her social media turned cold overnight, comments full of disappointment, betrayal, disbelief. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the center of admiration. She was the center of consequences. I walked past their closed doors, suitcase in hand. Mom looked up, eyes red and swollen. "Alyssa, please, let's talk. We can fix this." I paused, not out of guilt, out of clarity. "You didn't break me," I said softly. "You broke yourselves." Dad stepped forward, desperate. "We were protecting Emily's future. We didn't think that's the problem," I replied. "You never thought I had one." Their silence was louder than any apology could have been. I stepped outside where my aunt's car waited at the curb. Aunt Renee rolled down the window with a warm smile. "Ready more than ever," I said as I climbed in. As we drove away from Ridgewood, I looked out at the familiar streets, the tidy lawns, the glowing windows, the neighborhood that had always seen the Hale family as a perfect picture. Now they knew the truth behind the frame. But the world outside Ridgewood was bigger than any spotlight my parents had tried to dim. That afternoon, an email notification buzzed on my phone. It was from the scholarship committee after review. "We are reinstating your full scholarship offer. We apologize for previous confusion." I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For once, the future wasn't slipping through my fingers, it was opening. As the car crossed state lines toward Philadelphia, the sun dipped low, casting long golden rays across the road. Something about the light reminded me of the banquet stage, the spotlight that had never belonged to me. Now I understood something important. It never needed to, because I didn't need their stage. I just needed my truth. And that was enough to light my own path. Somewhere in the quiet hum of the car, I whispered the final words, only I needed to hear I choose my own spotlight now.